63S goes from 0 to 100 in 3.2 seconds and has a top speed of 315 kilometers per hour. Wow.
That's volume at 14. Let's get some volume.
So setting off here in the 2023 Integra. So the first thing you notice about this, well, you have a really nice low seat. Visibility is really great, especially being a wagon. You have a great view out of the back, definitely better than the RS7 in that regard. But you also can sit nice and low in these, and I really love how you have a great seating position and just feels very sporty. Another thing I'm really impressed with is this dynamic ride control this vehicle has. So it's like a $1,200 option, and it's really interesting. So standard RS6 Avants come with air springs and adaptive dampers, and it's a very nice ride. I sampled that in the RS7. It's really impressive with the ride quality and also having a nice firm ride whenever you want it to be with the sporty, drive modes and stuff. But with this one, with this dynamic ride control, it actually gets rid of the air springs. It goes back to regular coil springs, still has adaptive dampers, but the dampers are actually linked diagonally with hydraulics, and so that's supposed to improve compliance and also minimize roll even more than the already very high benchmark they already had here with the regular suspension setup. And so I haven't tested it out in a dynamic capability just yet, but as far as comfort, I'm just cruising in comfort mode here, and it is remarkable how smooth and comfortable this thing is. It is really, especially on 22-inch wheels. Even like luxury SUVs with 22-inch wheels, I struggle to remember one that actually has a more comfortable ride than this vehicle does. And on 22-inch wheels, this should not ever feel this comfortable, as far as usual expectations go. I mean, you usually expect a really firm ride with wheels this big, and this is super comfortable to be an amazing daily driver, and everyone would think that you're getting beat up in here with these huge wheels, but you're really not. It is so comfortable. I really am blown away by the comfort. But other things here, so you also have really great throttle response, and the brakes also feel nice and responsive. Now the carbon ceramics this one does have, which are like $9,000 or something, they do lose a little bit of their bite towards the bottom of the pedal travel. So basically whenever you're inching up, you really got to put a little more pressure on the brake pedal for that last little bit of stopping sometimes. So they're not as easy to use, I'd say, as regular brakes still, but it is such a minor difference compared to the carbon ceramics of old. I mean, these are so easy to use and still feel so good, and give you a higher top speed as well.
That's over 200 kilometers an hour, over 125 miles an hour. Wow, impressive how smooth the car did that with the all-wheel drive, rear-wheel biased all-wheel drive. Also with this RS dynamic pack we have here, not only the rear axle steering, but also the rear sport differential. Wow, amazing. And look at that, I mean, how silent the car is here at 160 kilometers an hour. Look at that lane change now, high-speed lane change. It's like nothing for the vehicle. Remains so calm. Yes, quite stiff. Okay, it is stiffer from the air suspension here in that sporty version. Also the 22-inch wheels make it definitely stiffer. Yet again, still comfortable when the road is, quite even. Now on the brakes, you really have to give them some push, definitely, but very good braking performance, no doubt about that. Wow, really cool. And I mean, how agile this car is. It's a really, it's a full-size vehicle, and the steering input here is so precise. There's no dead zone area. It's pretty light to steer, yes, even in that sport mode. A little bit stiffer, a little bit more resistance in the sporty modes. You can also individualize that. Yet again, I mean, it's really cool. You don't need any, long steering ways. So everything can be done without putting the hands off the steering wheel. And that's of course also, safety relevant, definitely. So what about here in the tunnel? Let's lower the window. Yeah, I mean, since the newest filters and so on, the sound has been decreased, no doubt about that. And there is this sport exhaust here in this vehicle, isn't, you know, you always get a sports exhaust, yeah, but then the optional sport exhaust is also equipped with this car, and it's really not too loud. Then again, I mean, yeah, you can always ask yourself, how necessary is it? Of course, when we drive the car ourselves, it's like, oh, it's a cool sound, and it's more emotional, it's cool, and so on. And therefore, also manufacturers increase the sound that comes to the interior of the car with these sound actuators, even with strong performance vehicles. Almost every car nowadays has that. Yet again, when you're on the outside and then you might do something else at the moment, you think like, yeah, what's that guy doing there? Kind of be like more silent, so always matter of perspective. Really impressed of how sovereign this car sits on the road. Oh, it's an M5 in front of us. So, yeah, the steering is just flawless. Really cool. What a great feeling.
And let's turn down onto this back road here and see how this thing does. Here we go. All right, there it is. Woo-hoo! Yeah, it took it a second to, kind of register that I wanted to take off. It wasn't immediate with its response, but then once it got into the right gear, then it is an enormous amount of power. Twin turbocharged 4-liter V8 engine that does 591 horsepower, 590 pound-feet of torque, a 3.1 second 0 to 60 time, an 11.5 second quarter-mile time at 120 miles per hour. And standard, they'll do 156 miles per hour for the top speed, just electronically limited. But when you get the carbon ceramics, they raise that limiter up to 190 miles per hour for the top speed for this thing, which is awesome. And man, it's just, it is so much power.
And here, this one, the big V8 4-liter and the 3-liter TDI, the diesels, have the classic 40-60 distribution, front rear, so rear wheel bias, and then of course a little bit more varying than depending, so you can get even more power to the rear wheels when you really accelerate out, and of course also a little bit more power to the front wheels. So very amazing also how silent this car was when we accelerated it out. And even though, yeah, the road was dry, now it's starting to pick up the rain just a little bit, but this all-wheel drive really got it very well to the ground. All the power we have here from the 600 horsepower, that was pretty cool. And I think this car still somewhat gives you a compromise between sportiness and comfort. The S6 does that better in a way, of course. Yet again, in Europe, only available as the diesel anymore. And that 3-liter diesel is really a very good engine. It's really efficient. So you've seen it in the A6 all-wheel review recently. You can drive it with a very low fuel consumption. That was pretty amazing. A good motorway vehicle. It's a little bit different than here with this V8 petrol engine. So we have to be aware of that. Of course, this one here is more emotional because especially you don't have to wait that long till the power sets in. That's different with the diesel. This is a more spontaneous throttle input. Let's go to the RS mode once again. Here we can throw it out once more. Now already starting from about 85-90 kilometers an hour. Let's go.
And it should be great. More power is always more fun, right? But it's just plenty of power here with this one as well. And switching back to comfort mode for a minute here, we're on this road that's a little bit rougher and usually generates some extra road noise here. And of course, this thing, is loaded up with sound deadening material, and obviously it's an Audi. It's very refined, and so you have very little road noise. It's also really smooth again here back in comfort mode. Even though this road's a little rougher, you really don't feel much of that through the cabin here. It's very, very impressive with all that. And anyway, we're going to go back up here though into the RS2 mode, but everything's in its sportiest setup in that, so stiffest dampers, everything is all amped up. It also has stability control turned off in that mode. But we're coming up some corners here I always take, and let's see how the RS6 Avant handles. Very, very well. Better than it should, because it still has a front bias weight distribution, and this thing weighs 5,031 pounds. But it doesn't hurt it at all because this thing has 4-wheel steering, in addition to those very trick adaptive dampers and the whole suspension setup just being so brilliant, and the rear diff that actually makes this thing very neutral and almost borderline oversteery a little bit whenever you push it. This one also is going to have a little bit of extra squirm because these 22-inch wheels are wrapped in Continental winter contact tires, So it has some snow tires on it here still, so I'm not going to be able to extract the most handling performance here. But actually, I think snow tires are a lot of fun with this motor because they do allow you to have a little bit more squirm here. But even with snow tires and it being 60 degrees outside here, it still is so flat and so competent. And obviously, on public roads, you really can't push a car like this, to even close to its potential. I mean, it's so flat and effortless. And also, I have to add too, whenever I was doing my slower driving, previously here earlier in the week, I had it in comfort mode, and even that, whenever you're going through a corner a little quickly, it's still totally fine in that comfort mode. So it's not like comfort mode throws the dynamics out the window. It's still going to feel super good in every mode that you're in. And the great thing with the RS, modes here is that you can customize it. So one of my other settings here is to have everything turned up to the aggressive mode except for the suspension. And you have that wonderfully soft, smooth ride, and also have everything else in the very fun settings. And it's great that you can have all of those different customizations here. But otherwise, it runs an 8-speed automatic transmission, optional all-wheel drive, and just for kicks here, we'll go ahead and put it up into the manual mode.
Wow, that's 160 kilometers an hour. Interesting. Now I'll turn off the RS mode just for safety precautions. Also, rain has picked up here once more. But even though it's raining, it's remaining perfectly silent here, and about 160 kilometers an hour. Wow. This car is sticking to the ground, definitely. The air suspension in the auto mode is more comfortable than it would be in the RS or dynamic mode, so it varies a little bit. Here at higher speeds, it's already going lower, 10 millimeters lower even than it usually would be. Lane change here, so easily done. Yeah, this is definitely one of the motorway cars overall. Pretty cool. And again, when I'm doing like a high-speed lane change, how safe the car feels. Great in the handling. Very, very impressive. So, and I think the compromise between sportiness and comfort would be even a little bit better than with the 21-inch wheels. Of course, 20-inch wheels will even be better for the riding comfort, but they do not offer it with the RS model. They think then, yeah, let's leave that, to the non-RS customers actually. Now seeing the cruise control, 100 kilometers an hour, 60 miles an hour, which would be a suitable motorway speed on, a lot of different motorway parts. Now the roads all dry again and super silent once more. It's very dark here in this interior with this dark Alcantara ceiling, definitely. Here the lane keeping assist is also working, but I can also deactivate it if I just want to steer on my own and just let the speed, be ruled by the ACC, the adaptive cruise control. So pretty impressed. It's not that you need a secondary vehicle, you can drive it as your primary vehicle, of course. Then suspension and wheel choice will be important. Shifting down yourself is always very cool, not only when going downhill, of course also when going uphill. Here then also appears M mode in the middle display. Special shifting levers, also shown that earlier, here for the RS model with the gap right here. So everything you touch and feel is very good. Just sometimes, mentioned in the interior part, this big middle console here, the top part, when there are some notable temperature changes throughout the day, throughout driving, it tends to make like a rattling noise sometimes, because the material is just working, so much material working there. But that's not like all the time. It's like once when it adapts to a new temperature or something, and then it's gone again, like for the next hour or something. So it's nothing. I mean, I've also spent in the A6 all-road like hours and hours and hours on motorway. It's nothing which you would be like disturbed with, and you can only hear it when you don't have the music on, for example. So, but of course we also want to mention the weaknesses of every vehicle here on AutoWeek. So, very interesting ride here today with the Audi RS6. One more slalom before we go to a little bit. This is so awesome.
Let's get crazy.
And try out some manual shifts here. Man, the way this thing gets up to speed is hilarious. It is really snappy for the transmission too. It feels almost as quick as a dual clutch. It really is so good. Even though thankfully it is a torque converter, so it gives you the nice smooth inching up in traffic, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm very thankful to have those carbon ceramic brakes here. Although the standard brakes aren't small, even on a regular RS6 Avant, you're going to get 16.5-inch front rotors, 14.6-inch rotors in the rear. You know, tons of braking capabilities still. But the carbon ceramics just, you know, amp that up even more. But yeah, I think, you know, the transmission, it's pretty intelligent, but I think sometimes it does get in the way a little bit to muffle things a little bit. And I think when you're in manual mode here, I think you know, when it's holding those gears, it really allows that engine to flex its muscles and really show off what it can do. And just once that turbo really comes on full blast, it feels like this thing wants to get off its leash, and it's just desperately trying to go faster. And oh, I love the way this thing drives. Launch control active. Woo! All right. Woo! There we go. Wow, okay, launch control is where it's at. That is where you're going to really get that impressive acceleration. Woo! Yeah, there's that 3.1 seconds 0 to 60, and it's amazing how the nose lifts up too, considering how low this thing is. I didn't think there was that much suspension travel, but you know, I still wish that there was a little bit of a quicker response from this transmission, because even with everything turned up to its sportiest settings here, I'm still, you know, there's that 1, 2, okay, now we're going kind of thing. And, you know, so I really love that since the manual shifting is so good, if you are in an enthusiastic mood, just, you know, do the manual shifting and you're going to have a blast, and it's going to give you those responses really quickly, and, you know, give you exactly what you're looking for there. Yeah, this thing, oh, and I can really feel that torque vectoring rear diff really working a little bit more. I think it has to work a little more, especially with the snow tires here. It realizes it has a little less grip probably than it's used to. But you know, this thing though, it's really just impressive. I'm always impressed with all these RS Audis. Of course, they're the highest performing ones out there. They're some of the best in their class consistently, and they're all a blast. But this one sounds great too. That sport exhaust. I do wish there's maybe a little bit of the crackling and popping that you get from some of the other RS products. Got some more tight corners here coming up. Alright, so I got to try and want to push a tiny bit there on that corner exit, but I think that is mostly the tires to blame here, these winter tires. You know, I'd love to try it on summer tires to compare, but I'm going to cut some slack here because, I mean, the driving it's doing here, even on snow tires, is very impressive. The last couple of tight corners coming up here. Man, oh, I can get used to this thing. I would love to own one of these things. Ultimate daily driver. You have amazing comfort, amazing performance, amazing handling, amazing practicality, and amazing luxury. So yes, struggling to find other words here in my thesaurus, but yeah, I would just say everything feels amazing to drive. And I take back what I said about the exhaust, because actually whenever you're at lower RPMs here and you're accelerating, it does actually do a little bit of crackling and popping. But we gotta merge onto a highway, so let's get to it. Woo, this thing. It's so quick. You can only keep your foot in it for a few seconds, and then you are already at the point where you need to slow down if you value the speed limit at all. But man, this motor sounds so good. Oh man.
So, and what you can easily do here always is when you're just in the normal driving mode and you don't want to switch like to an RS mode inside the city, but say, oh, traffic light will jump to green, I need like some punch to get away first from all the other vehicles, then you just pull this shifting lever backwards and go from the D to the S shifting mode. That goes to gear lower, turns up the gears higher, than shifts later up, shifts earlier down. Then you're already a little bit sporty, because the base setup of this car is of course already sporty. Air suspension here 20 millimeters lower as usual, and I do feel that really sitting a little bit lower. But the main difference you feel here suspension wise, because the air suspension is really good, is more about the wheel choice, because standard 21 inch and then optional 22 inch wheels we have here today, and these really reduce the comfort. And we have a very good comparison, because just recently we had that Audi A6 All-Road, which is then, you know, was equipped with 20-inch wheels, and that was still a quite good compromise. Oh, Toyota Aygo Racing here, obviously wants to lose the driver's license. Yeah, we always obey speed limits, even with fast cars, because we still need our driver's license. So, yeah, back to the air suspension and the wheel choice. So if you go for the RS model here, definitely do not upgrade to the 22-inch wheels. Yes, they really look amazing, but they reduce the comfort even further. And when I'm here now, like, the road is not that well done. It has some bumps, some damages in it.
Whew. Anyway, we're on the highway now, so we'll go ahead and try out the adaptive cruise control system, which is an option, believe it or not, on these still. I'm kind of surprised, but they do have that as an optional extra here. We're going to turn it on and see how it does with the driver assist stuff. But I have the lane guidance assist as well as the adaptive cruise and all that stuff on currently, and it just handled a gentle corner there, no problem. I was just kind of testing it out to see how it would do. We got a gentle corner here as well. And the steering assistance is really confident in this one. There's other Audis where it hasn't been amazing in the past for me, but this one is really top notch. It's really doing a good job of keeping it nice and centered in the lane. It's not ping-ponging. So